Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well today. It's a pleasure to be back here again. We're still. I just want to try here a couple of things, make sure that the sound is good. If you guys can please let me know right on the chat if you can hear me okay, if the sound of my voice is good, or if I need to be a little louder. Just let me know. And I'm also gonna check the guitar sound here. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Um, all right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, here to my channel and our weekly live stream that I call Six String Talk. Let me tell you guys a little bit about this project. Because of the virus and everything that's going on, we ended the classes here at the university where I teach. I teach at Belmont University here in Nashville. And we went fully online. And my idea was toward the end of the classes, and also now during the summer, the classes are not in session anymore. But the idea was to try to keep in touch with the students and offer these kind of classes, workshops, and having guests coming in and somehow still try to keep connected with the students. Then, as I thought a little more about this project, I actually decided why not to just make it public, and try to reach out to more people, more students, more people who are interested in guitar, interested in music, interested in learning. And it's kind of a lonely time now. We're all at our homes, and it's just I'm grateful for the technology and have a way to connect with students, with friends, and I believe here I have people from different parts of the world. So I see some friends from Brazil. I have also some friends here from the U.S. I see Fernando, José Antonio, Marcelo. Those are great guys. Thank you for joining in. I also have Robbie Chen, my good friend from Singapore. Um, it's really, really great to see you all here together. So, yeah, so that's the idea behind this project. So every week, I'm going to be doing that every Thursday night. Hopefully, we'll try to be as consistent as I can. And it's going to be initially, I'm going to start the first half of the show. I'm going to play a little bit, talk about music, discuss some concepts. And the second half of the show, I'm going to bring a guest. Last week was really great. We had a lot of people joining us here on the live stream. We had Mike Valeras, a great guitarist here from Nashville, also faculty at Belmont University. And this week, I invited another friend from Belmont, John Cardoni, a guitarist, great guitarist and educator, and he's gonna be joining us here briefly. So the second half of the show. And he's gonna share some great ideas about guitar, about career. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a really, really exciting talk. I'm excited to welcome here to the show. Really, really good. I see here some more people coming. Michael, Jenny, thank you all. Thank you guys for the support. This is really great. All right, time to get started then here. For this first part, I want to talk a little bit about Brazilian music, as probably For those who don't know, I was born and raised in São Paulo, Brazil. Moved to the US in 2011, and I'm a huge fan of Brazilian music, and I was born and raised playing that music. So it's always a joy for me to talk about it and explain and play. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about Brazilian music, and we're gonna start specifically um, with a song called Só Danço Samba. It's a song written by Antônio Carlos Jobim. Antônio Carlos Jobim is the most important bossa nova composer from Brazil. He wrote a lot of tunes that became very very popular, not only in Brazil but all around the globe. So I mean, I feel I'm talking a lot here, so I'm gonna play for you guys this tune called Só Danço Samba, and I'll talk more about it in a second. I'm gonna grab my guitar here. If you guys can tell me, I just wanna make sure the sound is good over there. Uh, great to see so many friends here. And if you guys want to support the channel, please don't forget to hit that like button. If it's not blue yet, just hit it and it's gonna become blue, and I'll appreciate it. Um, and I created here, I have a looping pedal here, so I created, just before I started the show here, I created a backing track here for myself to be playing this tune called Só Danço Samba. was Só Danço Samba by Antônio Carlos Jobim, with an insertion here of a melody that some of you might know. And that's part of what I want to talk about today. Um, all right, very good. I hope the sound was okay. It's always tricky here with that much gear, but it's good. So let's keep moving here. Great. So this song, if you know the name of the song I played a melody of an American song in the middle of this tune. If you know the name, can you please type it there for me on the chat? I'll give you a couple seconds to type it. I want to see who knows the name of the tune that I played. I just played like 8 bars, just one of the 8 sections of that tune. So if you know, please type it there for me. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get ready here for my next slide, which is this. Here is your answer. Take the A Train. That was the tune by Billy Strayhorn. So here we have 2 tunes, one Brazilian and one American tune. Let's talk here a little bit about how what's going on here with those 2 tunes. So Danço Samba was written by Jobim, and Take the A Train was written by Billy Strayhorn. And you have the dates right there. Take the A Train was written in 1939, and Só Danço Samba in 1962. Take the A Train, actually the first recording was in 1941. And Billy Strayhorn, he was to be a writer for Duke Ellington's big band, and this became a huge standard for in the repertoire of Duke Ellington's band. So I'm gonna get closer here a little bit. So you can see here that both tunes, they have the same form. By forming the organization of parts, so AA, BA, a 32 bar form. And if you look at the first 8 sections here, the first 8 bars, they are exactly the same changes. Only on the B section it's gonna be different. The only difference is that on the Duke Ellington's version here, Billy Strayhorn, it's an F chord for 4 bars, and here Jobim uses a 2-5-1 to F. Everything else is pretty much the same. So I'm showing you guys this. It's pretty obvious here to see the how similar those tunes are. It's a contrafact. So Danço Samba is a contrafact. That's the term we use for tunes who have the same form, same changes, but different melody. What's interesting to see here is that when you look at Jobim's interviews and when he talks about classical music, talks about jazz, he tends to deny a little bit this influence from American jazz, which is crazy because we can see influence of jazz everywhere on his music. There is an interview that he says that all his harmonies come straight from French Impressionism and Ravel and Debussy, but that might be true, but in the 60s, in the late 50s, early 60s, when Bossa Nova started in Brazil, the jazz was already very well developed in the United States, and there was a lot of influence there for sure. So this tune here is an example of an example that Jobim was aware of Duke Ellington's music. That's pretty obvious. So I just wanted to show this and show what I played. So I played those two tunes for you guys. Great. If you guys have any questions about this, you can just write on the chat. I'll be happy to answer. Let's keep moving here. And now I want to talk a little bit about Brazilian music versus American jazz, right? So I'm gonna move here to the screen. When people play "Take the A Train," obviously it's a swing tune, so it's gonna have a swing feel different from a Brazilian tune that has more like a straight eight kind of feel. So I just want to talk here a little bit about the function of the guitar on those two different styles. The guitar functions in a very different way in a Brazilian bossa nova samba kind of setting and in a swing setting, especially when it comes from the perspective of comping. So in a swing kind of setting, the guitar doesn't really have the role of carrying the groove, especially if you're talking about more modern jazz. If you talk about earlier jazz with like a Freddie Green style, where the guitar kind of like doubles the bass with that quarter note, that's true. In that case, the guitar is helping with the groove, but mostly the guitar is gonna only have a role of like providing colors for the chords, but it's not gonna be responsible for the actual groove. In Brazilian music, is different. The guitar, the drums, bass, and piano, they all work together to build the groove. On that 16th straight eighth note or 16 note subdivision. So most of the time when you have samba or Brazilian rhythms, you're also always gonna have that 16 note kind of subdivision going on. It's really important to have that subdivision. And when you think about swing, it's different. Everything is based in triplets and swung kind of feel. And I'm just gonna give a quick example here so you guys can understand that. I'll try to make a little track here. So this is like a little vamp in A minor. The bass is carrying the groove. The guitar is just providing those accents, but the guitar is not really responsible for the groove. And the feel is swung, right? So you're not gonna play straight. Right, so swing feel. Now with a Brazilian, like a samba groove, the role is gonna be different. The guitar is gonna have more like a rhythmic role, and it's gonna share the bill with the bass and drums. You know, all those instruments are gonna work together. So I'm gonna record here. So you have like one kind of bass. Then you have all those layers working together. Always that 16th note subdivision. Subdivision. So I think it's pretty clear, right? How the guitar operates in different ways. So from a perspective of from a comping perspective, it's important that the guitarist knows and understands the role of the guitar in the groove. From a solo perspective, it's as far as time goes, it's really important that you understand how that kind of groove is subdivided, and then try to make it feel good. That's the goal, and that's one of the hardest things to teach and to learn. I definitely think that a lot of things we can learn from books, and there are a lot of great books and great materials out there. But as far as groove and things like that, we need to listen to the music. Need to listen to transcribe. You need to play with really great musicians. I was very fortunate in Brazil to play with like really good drummers and percussionists that really like inspire me to like really try to get my Brazilian groove together. And I'm still working on it. Both same happened with my swing. I have to keep working on it, making sure that it's feeling good. It's important to record yourself, make sure that the sound you're not rushing or you're not dragging or the notes are uneven. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Great. If you guys have any questions here, let's see if we have any questions. I'll get a little closer. Yeah, Fernando is asking, do you think the P, the thumb, it's like the surdo, like the bass drum, and the IMA is like the tambourine? Yeah. So surdo is the low bass drum, and the tambourine is highest drum, like small. That's a way to look at it. You're working with some kind of polyphony here, right? You have one kind of rhythm going on here and one kind of rhythm going on here. It's really important to be consistent. This is definitely can be thought as being like the surdo, like the low. And I see a lot of people playing Brazilian music, and they just don't. They have a hard time to make this bass feel good and like really be in the pocket. So and it's not just about the time, but it's also about articulation and about intensity. So I play some of the notes pretty short. And sometimes if I want to get like a different effect, and get a bigger voicing, then I add another voice and I play actually a 5-note voicing. So, and I get a result kind of like this. Something like that. Cool. Great. Awesome. Marcos Lozano, dali tamborim na condução. That's it. Yeah, tamborim. It's if you guys, for those of you who never seen a samba school in Brazil, go to YouTube and just type Carnaval Samba Brazilian Samba School. You're gonna understand what we're talking about. Um, Great. Um, I'm going to. It's about time to bring my guest, and I see some new questions coming here. So maybe John and John can help me out here address some of those questions. Uh, if you guys can please help welcome my friend, great guitarist, great educator, John Cardoni. John, are you there? Are you there?
Is this thing on? Is,
Not
is this
yet.
thing on?
Actually, not yet. Now you're on. Now you're
Is
on.
this thing on?
Good to
Howdy,
see you,
Paulo.
man.
Hey, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me on this, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Uh,
Happy to be here.
yeah, that's great. Guys, can you guys hear John okay? Please let us know if anything is weird with the sound. We can try to fix it here. Uh, John, again, it's a pleasure to be here. For
You
those
too.
who don't know, John and I, we both work at Belmont University. We teach guitar, and John is just such a great energy and such a great player. So I thought that he was gonna be like a perfect guy to hang out with us here today, and he was gracious enough to give us some of his time, and it's gonna be a good time. John, can you introduce yourself? Tell. Now we have 23 people watching us here. If you want to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you and what you do and all that jazz.
Sure thing. Yeah, all that jazz. Well, thanks again for having me, Paulo. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening here. Hopefully, this might be a nice little respite or a little escape from all the craziness with the rest of the world. So, yeah, my name is John Cardoni. I moved here to Nashville 2011 to do my graduate school at Belmont. Um, and I had been out of school for a while. I did my undergrad at Millikan University, which is in Decatur, Illinois, kind of smack dab in the middle of the state. Most of the time, it smells like soybeans, so it's just a lovely whiff in the air when when you're living
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
You know when the wind is blowing right in Decatur. So I
Mm-hmm.
did my bachelor's there, commercial music, guitar performance, and spent some time playing in different bands, original bands, like a funk band for a while with four horn players, a DJ. We even had a rapper for a while, um, and then kind of transitioned into more of like a traditional four-piece kind of rock alt country band for a while, and then eventually kind of had that bite to go back to school. So that brought me down here to Nashville, and kind of thought I'd kill two birds with one stone, kind of go back to grad school while also getting myself into a completely new city, which I barely knew anyone. So I thought grad school in Belmont specifically would be a great way to start to meet people and kind of network. And started to teach at Belmont 2014, I think. So I think this was my 6th year going as one of the adjuncts here,
Mm-hmm.
and very happy teaching. We have, as you know, Paulo, we have a lot of great colleagues and teachers on campus, and usually the students aren't too bad either. So
uh, yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Last week we had Mike Valeras here. I think I saw him in the chat here somewhere. If you're there, Mike.
yeah, he's around here somewhere.
Yeah, he's there, he's just quiet. Yeah, we had a great time. We played, we talked a little bit, and today is great to have you here and hang out. Um, we have a couple questions here, and maybe you can help me answer some of those. We can both give our perspective here on those questions. My
Sure
dear
thing.
friend, Chris Ruiz, great saxophone player from Colorado, from Texas, but he lives in Colorado. Great friend. We played a lot of gigs together. He has a question here. Can you speak about how you guide students through learning their first transcriptions? So, do you want to start and then I'll chime in after you?
Sure. I mean, it could kind of be dependent on where the person's at experience wise. I mean, if you're doing your first transcription, I don't think I would go all the way into like a Chick Corea or a Keith Jarrett transcription or a Coltrane thing. I'd keep it simple and singable at first, because I think when you're doing transcriptions, you want to be able to kind of hear what you just heard in your head and almost be able to sing it back to yourself. And that kind of helps that translation to, writing it down or learning it on your instrument. Probably one of the classic ones that can be a challenge enough, but a great just melodic, solo to transcribe would be, Miles Davis on So What. That's usually kind of a classic one. It's very kind of simple melodies. You can really sing them, and you can start off there and start to, use that as a stepping stone as you get, more complex transcriptions, that sort of thing. But yeah, starting off simple and singable would be my two key words for that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I agree. One of the things that I ask students a lot of students who want to start playing jazz, they come from a rock background, which in some ways can help, but in other ways, the language is different. So there's a lot of adjustments to be done. And some students can get overwhelmed having to transcribe a whole jazz solo, all these
Yeah.
weird rhythms and weird chromatic notes. And what I tell my guys is, don't worry about transcribing the whole thing. Again, I agree with you. Start with something simple, but find something that you like that represents the style well. Having a teacher to guide you on that's really important. And don't worry about learning the whole thing. Learn a couple of phrases. Learn, like 16 bars, 8 bars, and really try to digest that sound. Repeat, try to find different ways to play it on the fretboard, transpose it to different keys, find tunes where you can apply. Because learning the solo, it doesn't mean that you're going to be absorbing that music right away. You need to live
Yeah.
with it for a while, right? You need to be playing. You need to be try to apply in different situations, and that's what I tell my students. Maybe a little less material, but to spend more time with it and trying to apply and try to use in different situations and play along with the recording, trying to mimic everything, articulations, intensity, to really get that language in your blood. So I think that's an
Yeah,
important thing to
that's
do.
great.
We have another question here, and this one you can definitely help me out too. Dane Swenson, thank you so much, Dane, for being with us today. Um, he's asking, does the Belmont guitar program have an emphasis on jazz and swing? I'll let you take that one first, and I'll compliment.
Okay. Yes and no, I
Uh,
guess. uh, so for at Belmont University, it's technically a commercial music program. It's not a jazz studies like you'd find in other universities. So start there. But how we do it, and this was kind of similar to how my undergrad at Milligan did it too, is the first couple of years are more focused on kind of traditional jazz, traditional swing, um, you know, taken from the, just the real book as far as like standards. And then the next 2 years, it's more open. So we have students who go down the fusion route, go into country chicken picking to, bluegrass. They start to pick up 3 different instruments all of a sudden, to, finger style, to just more complicated jazz and, bop and post bop and wherever jazz is at now. I'm not quite sure what you'd call it, modern, I suppose. So yeah, then it opens up. So it's not, it has some of that structure, but then a lot of leeway. So yes and no, I
mhm.
suppose.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, just to complement that, the first 2 years, mostly the students, we expect the students to spend some time trying to learn some basic jazz concepts, improvisation, voicings. We believe that learning jazz is going to help you in a lot of different styles in different ways as you pursue your career. We also think a little bit of classical guitar on the first 2 years is important. So you'd have some classical
Yeah.
guitar lessons the first 2 years, and a lot of jazz concepts. Third and fourth year, then things are a little looser, and you can approach different styles: rock, fusion, country. So we try to have that balance. But the first 2 years, a lot of jazz for sure. But that's the thing. Like a lot of people, when they look at voicings and certain scales, they already think, "Oh, this is jazz," and this is not necessarily jazz. This is just music, right? Just learning voicings, learning different ways to play scales and arpeggios and triads on the guitar. It's part of the process.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what we do. All right.
Yeah, sometimes for some students, we start to talk about a major seventh, and all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! What's all this jazz talk here going on?"
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah, a major seven chord is not a jazz chord. It's a chord.
yeah,
Like, and I just try to make sure this is understand that, and be open, right? Be open to to maybe a type of music that they're not used to, or maybe they don't play as often. But that's where you learn when you're open to try new things. So I think that's really really important. Okay, great. Um, we have maybe it's time for you to play something for us. What do you
sure,
think? We have
I
we
can
have
try something.
Yeah, so I'm gonna change the screen here for you, and
Oh
looking
gosh,
forward
yeah.
to enjoying some music.
Yeah, let's see. What do I have here? So when Paulo asked me to join him tonight, I was trying to think of, okay, what could I do? What could I talk about? Um, so I thought I'd start off with some basic concepts, and I'll get to those later on. So some of the basic concepts, sometimes when like for me when I was growing up, if I was trying to get used to something, I would almost like try to make my own exercises with it, or maybe even try to write a song with it. So this is something I kind of just came up with today using. Some people might call them open voicings, others might call them drop two voicings, but just basically triads, three notes. I throw in an open string every once in a while. There, let's see. So this is just something I kind of just like came up today when I was trying to think of like what to talk about, and it comes from the idea of seeing arcade shapes. And, for those who don't know about cage, especially if you're not a guitar player, it's a very kind of specific thing to the instrument. But the whole idea is basically, I'll turn off the delay. We essentially have 5 chord shapes. Caged, a C chord, A, G, E, D. And when I get into my next thing, I'm going to play talking about how just seeing them as like a kind of like a block shape, very vertical. Some people, they don't really see all that's there. So you start breaking it down, breaking it apart. And the E or A, D, those 3 shapes are probably the most useful, especially if you're starting to say you're recording multiple parts, recording multiple guitar takes, or layering or stacking a lot of things together, especially during these last few months. We've all kind of been stuck at home. Hopefully you're opening up your GarageBand or Logic or something and trying to make some music happen, write some music, record some music, because we've had that time to be able to do it. So for those, this is a basic to intermediate level kind of concept for those who are new to how do I layer so many guitar parts, just like what Paulo was doing earlier when he was setting up those loops. He was kind of instinctually knowing what to do, like having a bass, having a rhythm part, starting to compose the guitar, kind of break apart the guitar neck into little territories almost. We have 6 strings. Eventually, you like to think of it as 6 separate voices, in a sense, almost like 6 rows of piano keys. And each string is its own voice. You can shift left or right very linearly, like you would maybe on the piano. So with the E shape, A shape, D shape, those are kind of interesting and good to kind of keep in mind when you're layering and recording multiple takes, because they kind of break apart the neck for you. The E shape, the 3 lowest notes, 3 lowest strings, root, 5th, and then the octave of your root. Your A shape, same thing, root, 5th, and your octave. The D, as long as you're starting with the 4th string, root, 5th, and the octave. So those are our power chords. If you're especially anyone who's getting into more rock metal stuff, if you're tracking a lot of power chord things, you can use those 3 shapes to your advantage to stack multiple power chords, not just play the same thing. You can play a, there we go, E power chord, and then I'll see for an E chord, but using a D shape, then I can move up to another E chord, but again, now it's using an A shape. And so stack those 3 on top of each other, you're going to have a massive awesome wall of just heavy saturated guitar. And especially the more overdrive you give to it, it's not going to clash. Like sometimes guitar players will make the mistake if they're starting to record stuff, they start to have too many notes in one track. Once you start talking about intervals closer than a 4th, when you're throwing on overdrive and distortion, that becomes a lot more distorted in a bad way, like warbly or kind of shaky. And even this is something that professional engineers and mastering engineers, they may not play a note on the instrument, but they know when they hear something like there's that warble in there, this notes are clashing, and you get that, especially say a G chord. If you're playing that within the mixed twist tune, that tertiary voicing isn't great on the low end, but it works if you're on the upper end. So it's again, those three, you can see like an E shape, a D shape, an A shape. So those are super useful when recording multiple tracks. So then you can start to break those apart. So that little thing I was playing, for the most part, was just coming from like a D shape. So I have root fifth, root, and then a third on top. Okay, I'm doubling the root. I don't need to do that. So I'm going to take the middle one away. So now you have this, again, I call them like an open voicing. I know some people will call them, technically it's a drop two voicing because the triad would be this, right? Second highest note, drop down, so thus a drop two for a triad. And this is something that Eric Johnson does all the time. He does a lot of these kind of like opening things, like he likes to use those like kind of like wide voicings. But a lot of them are going to come from your cage shapes. So I have an E chord like that, root, fifth, my third on top. Lots of times we'll call that a 10th interval instead of a third. So then you can start to kind of break that down even further. Just have two simple notes, root, the third of your chord, but it's an octave higher, so we call it a 10th interval. And so many songs that have trouble with the pedal use that. I mean, we hear it all over, especially country radio these days, pop stuff, classical world. I mean, Francisco Tárrega's Lágrima. For a lot of students, a lot of guitar players starting off, when they learn that piece, that's probably the first time they ever played an E chord like that. Like with the open B, which of course you could just play you could see it right there, that we're using that open B as like a pedal. If you made those all three just, a full triad, so it's really just kind of seeing this movable, in this case it's a D shape, a D minor shape, F sharp minor. They get rid of any doublings that you don't need, and they can have that root in the 10th. So that's a kind of cool thing. So if you don't mind, Paulo, let me try. I'm going to play something else for everyone, if they don't mind.
Sure. And just so for for everybody who it might be interested, like in just check these voices. This video is gonna be on YouTube, so you can always go back later, tomorrow or anytime, and you can watch it again and go back and rewatch it, because it can be a little quick. So I know we have a lot of guitarists here that might be interesting in learning this. And I see some friends.
Yeah, we already had someone say, that song taught them a lot about playing the Tárrega.
Oh yeah, that's Brandon. Brandon was my student here. Good to see you, Brandon. Mark Tonelli is also here. Mark Tonelli is actually a guitar professor at Milken University. So
I was just gonna say I saw his. I don't think Mark and I have met each other yet. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Old school. Hey there, Mark. Hope Decatur's treating you well.
Yeah.
I hope Dr. Dave isn't, beat you down at you all the time. we miss Dr. Dave. Actually, I think there's someone else in the chat that's a former Milligan alum too. My good friend Dan, who's a bass player.
Oh, great.
Don't know if he's still there.
Great. Okay.
But yeah, so like lots of times I like to try to just like write something, even if it's a simple thing, to kind of be able to digest a concept, as it were. I think that's something that I would think maybe you'd probably agree, Paul, is like a lot of sometimes our students, we give them an idea or concepts, whether it's learning drop two voicings or triads or in different versions of such or scales. And like, oh yeah, okay. And they come back and they don't got it. They don't understand it at all. Like, well, didn't you work on it? And they'll say yes, like, and you have to ask them like, well, how did you work on it? Did you just, did you just do this, and say, okay, and then, forgot about it for the rest of the week? Did you try to, write a song, just using those three strings that, that same shape, just try to write a song with that, or, learn a song just using those shapes? Did you try to, apply it to something? And for me, lots of times I just try to write a little ditty or a little etude, in a sense, write something that kind of, makes me kind of utilize it. So that thing that I was doing was basically just kind of using those root fifth and a tenth voicings as like an A Lydian sound. And then later on, I adjusted it so it was more A minor. Yeah. So
that's great.
Makes you kind of think about the different,
that's great stuff. So for everybody who needs, just go back to it and watch it and take a little. You can just go back, watch it slower. But that was great. That was really good. Are you? We are kind of getting close here to the final part.
We're already at an hour, aren't we?
we are gonna. Generally, I try to keep it at 1 hour, 1 hour 10 minutes, 1 hour 15 minutes. Time flies here; it's crazy. I want to know if anybody has a question to me or to John about anything he explained or the stuff I explained earlier. Now is the time. Just go to the chat and type it. Comments or questions. Again, we are going to be doing that every week, every Thursday. And if I end up changing the date, I'll find a way to let everybody know. But if you subscribe, you are going to know because I create the live earlier, so you're going to get a notification. And if you haven't subscribed, or make sure you please do that so we can keep in touch. Maybe you can play something and I will play a little something too, so we can wrap it up. What would you like to play for us?
Sure. So let me pull something up. I'm gonna halfway kind of cheat. So I was mentioning the idea of like breaking down those cage shapes. And breaking them down even further to just the bare bones of the root and the third an octave higher, so a tenth.
John, maybe if you move back a little bit so you can see your hands and your that would be great. Yeah.
So you hear this stuff all the time. It's all over the radio these days, that idea of that root and the tenth above. So like a day or so ago, I just wrote a little thing, a little melody, and groove that came to mind. So I'm gonna play along with it, and hopefully you'll hear it all right. Let's let it fade away from there. So that's a little stuff I just came up with.
Yeah, man, sounds great, dude.
Thanks, man.
Sounds really great. Great phrases and cool kind of layering too. Does it have a name already?
I have no idea. I don't know. But yeah, just the idea of just like I can just like a little choir. Like you have to kind of think of the guitar as like 6-person choir, and you can have one. I mean, I literally played like those 3 harmonized lines. I didn't quite do it on 3 different strings, but essentially kind of started to think of just 3 different strings, and each string was its own line. Kind of just work it just like.
Cool.
Like
actually, so there are a few comments here for you. So Mark Tonelli is saying like, hey, you didn't tell me Larry Carlton was going to be in your show. So that was Mark. That was your thanks, Mark. Yeah, he sounds great, man. This guy sounds great. Also, I have if you can just summarize, I'm gonna ask you here if you can summarize those answers. I have a couple of questions here for you. Can give a brief answer here. So Sunburns, hello Sam.
Yeah. Hey Sam.
Outside teaching, what kind of projects are you involved in? What's the essence of your creative dream? And what was like finishing grad school at Belmont and then end up teaching there? Good question.
Okay, well, hit them 1, 2, 3. So besides teaching, So I guess a couple things I'm involved with. So to be honest, I'm 38 years old. I did a lot of spent most of my 20s playing in original bands. Played in, like I said, basically from early 2000s. I played in a band that was kind of like Snarky Puppy. We just weren't nearly as good as Snarky Puppy, but we had four horns. We didn't have any keyboardists because we didn't know what a keyboard is. But that was an old band called Public Display of Funk, and I wrote up a lot of music for that band back in the day. Writing 4-part harmonies for the horns because we had trombone, tenor, bari, soprano, alto, who they would flip flop, and a trumpet player. So write up 4-part harmonies for this group. So we did some arrangements of covers, like some of your usual stuff like Sledgehammer and Superstition, but we'd do original stuff too. So that was like early on, this my early 20s, undergrad years. That was like my creative outlet. And then that kind of transitions into like a rock band, alt rock band. And then eventually, as we get older, sometimes you start to try to find how can I make money in the first place, and then how can I make a little bit more money later on with the instrument in my hand. So that's where teaching leads to that, which why I decided to go to grad school, go to Belmont, because I had been teaching at Millikan as an adjunct there in like 2008 to 2011, but I only had a bachelor's at that time. So, the writing was on the wall that, well, if you want to keep teaching at the college level, you at least need a master's. And even up at that point, you're only going to probably at best be an adjunct, but that's something. But so these days, since being in Nashville, these past 4 or 5 years, I've more so been playing like a corporate band, a wedding band, like dance band that plays just about everything. We essentially have a 3-hour set show, do everything from Stevie Wonder to Miley Cyrus and everything in between. And a lot of the times, sometimes the more creative outlet for that side is, even though I play songs, I always like to throw in a couple things. Sure, we're playing, signed, sealed, delivered, but maybe the keyboardist does a little reharm going to the 4 chord, and then we all look at each other and kind of wink and smile and nod and try to catch it the second time. Or we might play a cocktail hour, for weddings, and those are usually fun. But yeah, outside of teaching these days, it's been a lot more like the corporate playing, as the old cats here in Nashville used to say, like the social gigs, if I'm not mistaken. And then I also do a podcast with a fellow Nashville guy who's an audio engineer called Coffee and Consoles. And we started that in the fall of last year. And so if anyone's interested, Coffee and Consoles, look them up. iTunes podcast, Spotify podcast. We have an Instagram. Not super active on the Instagram for that, but Coffee and Consoles. I should say it's not Consoles and Coffee on Instagram. That's a completely other Instagram page dedicated to retro video game consoles. So I realize that, but so Coffee and Consoles, man.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a podcast in which we just pick one song. It's been a lot of kind of classic rock vein, but we've done like an old Bing Crosby, Les Paul song. We've done a Alison Krauss bluegrass tune, and we'll talk about it. He, being a audio engineer, talks about it from kind of the recording side. How did they get those sounds? What mics did they use? Even and be from the musician side, like what's the structure of the song? What's the harmony? What's going on inside the song, musically speaking? So,
yeah, I actually checked it out, and there was another thing.
Man.
Like, there was another thing. Hey, man, I need to bring John to my show now, because I really enjoyed it, and I need to check out a few more. You guys have it's on Spotify, right?
Yeah, Spotify, Coffee and Consoles.
Mm-hmm.
So Spotify, iTunes podcast, Podbean. If anyone uses Podbean, that distributes it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, John. Thank you. That's great. A lot of great stuff. A great playing too. And
thanks,
great,
man.
Here for I want to share. I prepared another thing here to share another tip. And that's not only for guitarists. That can be like pretty much for like any musician. And that's for me is one of the toughest things. which is work on your time and your rhythm. That's something that I'm constantly working on, trying to get better. And most of my fellow musicians, my fellow friend musicians, they are all kind of doing the same thing. Um, so and I one thing that I do, I mean, I work a lot with metronome, but I also just using the looping pedal, like I was doing just now, just like coming up with those layers. If your time is not accurate, like it's really difficult to use a looping pedal. Um, I still have the one I made earlier for the people who arrived a little later. So here I have
Yeah.
like one layer of like a guitar with kind of like a bass and lower voicings, and another one with like higher voicings. So like magic, I'm not even gonna play, and you guys are gonna hear sound because I recorded it at the beginning of the live. So and again, my advice is try to record yourself. And try to come up with layers. And it can be pretty simple, just like one note, like 16 notes or 8 notes repeated, like a simple groove, make it loop, and make sure that's really, really accurate. And the cool thing is that you can play and you can hear back, like you can tell if it's off or not. So just keep that in mind. And then once you after you create those layers, try to play on top of it. So instead of play another tune, I'm just gonna show you guys here. I'm just gonna jam a little bit with this little groove here that I created. And now, like, I'm more worried about the time, like the rhythm, more than anything. Sometimes when you practice, you want to make sure. Sorry, sometimes when you practice, it's really difficult to pay attention on everything at once, right? So sometimes I'm playing a tune and I make sure that now I'm gonna be paying attention on the time. So the time's gonna be the thing. There will be times that I'm gonna be playing a tune. Okay, now I'm gonna just try to work on some harmonic things. I'm gonna try to apply some licks. If you try to pay attention at everything at once, it can be pretty difficult. And I'm gonna play some ideas, some rhythmic ideas, and try to develop them a little bit. So the idea here, the motivic development was rhythmic, right? So a lot of people, when they think about motives, they think about like licks or like short licks, but sometimes a motif can be a rhythm. Rhythm is something that for the listener is very easy to remember, you know. And although like I play a lot of different things and chromatic lines, I try to keep it simple, but still that whole idea of that rhythmic idea was like always coming back. So practice your rhythm. Make sure that your time is accurate and that your ideas are clear. You want to deliver your lines and your rhythm and your phrases to the audience in a clear way, so the audience doesn't have to struggle to understand what's going on. That's kind of like my main tip for today. And next week I'm preparing a few things that also relate to rhythm and feel, and I'll have a few more things to add. But for now, work with your loop pedal, try to record some layers. And again, remember, if you're playing more Brazilian Latin style, make sure you know that subdivision straight eighth note is really important. If you're playing swing, make sure you work on your swing. Make sure you don't overswing. Transcribing is also always great. I talked a little bit about transcription earlier here today. So those things are all very very important. All right. So okay, let's see if we have one last questions here. If you guys have any last questions, we are about to wrap up. John, do you have any final words here, just for us to finish up? Before you say anything, I want to thank you. Let me put you back on the screen. I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us, share your knowledge, play some music. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you and get to hear you play.
Thanks, Paulo. It was my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me again. And I don't think I have anything else to say. Hope everyone stays safe out there.
Cool. Thank you.
Keep making music. Create.
Thank you. Well, I just I don't think they're because I asked them to add questions, but the questions they take a second to get here. There was one question here earlier, and you can answer that pretty quick before we finish. Fernando asked if you had any if you played any Brazilian music. Fernando is a guitarist friend of mine from Brazil. Did you play or practice any Brazilian music during your studies?
I saw him very little. I mean, there's probably a lot I can learn from you. So,
I'm trying to figure it out myself. Anything I know would be
just the basics.
Yeah, when Fernando comes here to visit Nashville, we can have a little trio and play some Brazilian music.
Yeah, I love it though. It's great.
Cool, awesome, guys. Thank you all so much. It was a really really good time, and I hope you learned something from us. And I appreciate you guys coming in and asking questions. Again, we do that, just we want to make sure that we share some of the things we are working on, and we can make new connections, especially during this time. So next week, next Thursday, same time, we are gonna be here again, and I'm gonna have a new guest that I'm not gonna reveal right now. If you wanna see who it is, you should just come. Show up next week and stay with us. All right. If you haven't subscribed and liked, please, that thumbs up really helps us here. Okay. Thank you, John.
Thumbs down to whoever gave us one thumbs down.
Yeah. It's okay. It still helps. YouTube doesn't matter if it's down or up. It's all good.
Yeah. If you didn't like it, then shut it off. Don't need it. Thumbs down.
Yeah.
Troll.
Sounds great, guys. John, have a great night. Thank you all so much for being for hanging out with us. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.